To the senator from Connecticut, if that's
yield 2 additional minutes to the senator from Connecticut.
or 3 or 4. Do you want to go ahead now? Okay. Madam President.
Senator from Arizona.
I'll be fairly brief here. This argument has been made, and we've pretty well covered most of the issue. I would remind my colleagues that all the things we do are a matter of choices because we don't have unlimited amounts of funds, obviously. And if you spend money on one project, then obviously you may have to spend less on another. And that is the case of the F-35 if we don't eliminate this $1.75 billion. But most important, I want to point out again, this amendment is more than just about a weapons system. This amendment is about whether we will stop doing business as usual, and that is continuing to fund weapons systems that are no longer needed and unnecessary. We are not saying the F-22 isn't a good aircraft. We are saying it's time to end the production of the F-22. The President of the United States has threatened to veto this entire bill. That's not good for the men and women in the military to have to go through this whole process over again. The Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, and very importantly, the Secretary of Defense, who has served now under 2 presidents and has gained the respect and appreciation of all of us for his service. And Madam President, I would ask unanimous consent that Secretary of Defense Gates' speech last July 16th to the Economic Club of Chicago be included in the record.
Without objection.
Madam President, I'm a student of history, and there's one particular president that I have grown, along with historians, to appreciate more and more for his 2 terms as President of the United States, and that's Dwight David Eisenhower. We were at peace during President Eisenhower's term, and many believe that perhaps the war in Vietnam might have been avoided if we had heeded his wise counsel. There are many, many things that President Eisenhower did most to contribute to this nation, both in war and in peace. And on several occasions, I have reread his farewell speech of January 17, 1961. In his speech, President Eisenhower said, "In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties, our democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military struggle with liberty at stake. Military struggle with liberty at stake, only thus we shall remain despite every provocation. So security and liberty may prosper together." I want to repeat that last sentence. To meet it successfully, there is called for not so much the emotional and transitory sacrifices of crisis, but those which enable us to carry forward steadily, surely, and without complaint the burdens of a prolonged and complex struggle with liberty at stake. I would only add to President Eisenhower's farewell address to the nation, which is compelling in many ways, that it should be changed, the word should be changed from military-industrial to military-industrial congressional complex. What we are seeing here, despite the advice and counsel of our President, of our Secretary of Defense, of our uniformed military, with rare exception, is a recommendation that we stop with this aircraft and build another. Not that we stop building fighter aircraft for our inventory, not that we stop defending this nation with the weapon systems that we need. We're even defending a weapon systems continued production that has never flown in the 2 wars that we're engaged in. So I urge my colleagues to understand the impact of this amendment. If we're able to succeed, it's going to send a signal that we're stopping business as usual and we must move forward providing the men and women with the necessary means to win the struggles we are in throughout the world, especially two wars. So I urge my colleagues to understand that sacrifices will be made, jobs will be lost. It will cause disruption in some communities. But our first obligation is the defense of this nation and the use of scarce defense dollars in the most effective fashion. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this amendment. Madam President, I yield the floor.
Madam President.
Senator from Michigan.
I have 9 unanimous consent requests.